All right, what's up, everybody? This is the Luxury Health Podcast, and we have a special guest in the building, Mr. Lester Long. How's it going?
Oh, everything's going pretty good today. I can't
Good,
complain.
good, good. It's a rainy
Life is
day
good
here
if
in
you make it
Atlanta.
good. That's what they tell me.
It's a rainy day here in Atlanta, so hopefully people are still getting out and living life as they would on a sunny day.
Absolutely.
There we go. So I reached out to Mr. Lester Long probably about 2 weeks ago, asking if he would be interested in coming on the podcast to talk about substance abuse and addiction. So I found Mr. Lester Long. I found his bio and his work experience on Psychology Today, which is a website, and I read through and sounded very interesting. So I wanted to definitely have you on the podcast. And as soon as I reached out to you, I think it was a few hours later, you called me and you said, we can definitely do this. We can make this happen. And you sounded very excited and ready to do it. So I appreciate your passion and excitement for it. My goal with this podcast is to talk about all things health. So my expertise is in the food side of health, so juicing and making smoothies. I enjoy doing that for people, enjoy doing that for my family. So I know a lot about that part of the health process, the health circle, but I want to focus on all different things of health. So when you think of health, you're not just thinking about food and exercise, but also think about how finances could affect your health, how a change in career, how networking with people, how dealing with substance abuse, dealing with crisis, trauma, all of that affects your health. So I definitely wanted that to be a part of this podcast.
Absolutely.
With you, your expertise is in substance abuse and addiction. So I first want you to let the people know how you got started in this type of work. Feel free to share your story if you have a personal story with how you got started, but just let the people know how you was introduced in this type of work.
Okay. Well, basically, back in probably 1982, I'm going to go all the way back there. After having a very interesting childhood and early adult life, where I became a minister, I pastored a church. I was an elected official. This was all in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. And I had children. I went to school and got my bachelor's degree, but I made some mistakes, some bad decisions. And as a result of those bad decisions, my life turned around, and then turned around for the worse. And as a result of that, I became very depressed. I had internalized anger at myself, and I developed some resentments because I thought people were my friends and they were all around me when I was doing well. And it seemed like when things started going bad, I looked around and didn't have any. So it caused me to first start increasing my alcohol intake.
Okay.
As well as, doing a little marijuana. I had done marijuana in the past, but, I had began to increase usage of that as well as drinking. And somebody, by it being the 80s and towards the late 80s, as many people are well aware of, crack cocaine was introduced in America, and particularly in the minority community and the African American community. So many of us, especially in the small town that I was living in at that time, didn't understand the impact of cocaine and crack. So they thought it was a social drug like marijuana. But everyone soon found out, and it didn't take long, that this was an extremely addictive drug that caused people's behaviors to be to end up in negative consequences. So mine started going in that direction. After trying it, it was really the first time I tried it. It was almost 3 years later before I tried it again.
Wow.
But when I tried it again, it was under different circumstances, and the next thing that I knew, I was constantly using off and on here and there, and then it became almost an everyday thing. As I became more and more depressed, So I decided to leave Kalamazoo, Michigan, um, and come down here to Atlanta to get away from drug addiction. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't work too well because when I first got down here, I ended up in a place called Herndon Homes. I
Yep.
don't know
Yep. I
if
know.
I know about the projects, but
Uh-huh.
because of my financial situation, and I met someone that was trying to help me out, and that's where they lived. So the drugs was very pervasive there. So I ended up starting back. I had tried to get away and I started back, and then that was the cycle that led to a period of 17 years of off and on addiction to crack
Mm.
cocaine. And eventually in 2005, I made a decision that I wanted to live rather than die.
Mm-hmm.
It got to a point that, for one thing, the cocaine usage was no longer fun. It was more problems than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped having any intermediate fun. So my addiction got to a point where I had to make a decision. Either go on down the road and die or change. And
Yeah.
so I chose recovery, and finally, and I've been clean of cocaine ever since then. That was 2005. So, as a result of that, that led me towards this field.
Mm-hmm.
I had already worked in substance way back years ago in an alcohol program. It was a referral program to people for people to go to detox. But I really didn't understand it. Even though my father was an alcoholic, I still didn't quite understand how a person can take a drink and not stop. You know,
Yeah.
But after my experience with addiction, I understood it quite well.
Mm-hmm.
How it can be an obsessive compulsive desire to have something or to want something, and even though it still has negative consequences like jail, institutions, and so forth. So I experienced all of that during my addiction, but that's what led me to this field, is that I wanted to help other people who had the problems that I have. And so it's something that I don't know, it's just a passion now
Yeah.
inside of me to want to help others change their life.
Yeah.
And so I went on. I already had a bachelor's degree. I eventually went on, got my master's. Before that, I became certified as an alcohol drug counselor in Georgia through the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Certification Board of Georgia. I
Mm-hmm.
passed the test.
Awesome.
Went on to
Awesome.
become a clinical supervisor. I took that test as well, and completed my master's in psychology. After which I've gone on a couple of times back to school for graduate certificates in mental health services and addictive behavior.
Wow.
Uh, so that's where I'm at in terms of that part of it.
Wow. Wow. And I appreciate you telling this story because I always say it's important to be vocal about different experiences that you go through, because you never know who's listening, who is on the same path as you were, who's thinking about going down the same path as you were, or who you can connect with simply by just telling your story, not just saying
Mm-hmm.
more than that. So you mentioned two things that really, the entire story was great, but you're missing two things that really caught my attention. The first one was you started using drugs. I think it was crack cocaine. You did it one time and then you stopped for 3 years and then you came back to it. So you didn't like it the first time that you used it and you came back to it. And the second thing was you tried to get away from it. You came down to Atlanta and you got into Herndon Homes, and the environment that you were in kind of played a role in you using it again. So how much of an effect does the environment that a lot of us live in, that we may work in, that we walk in every day, that we just can't get out that environment that easily, how much of an impact does the environment play on substance abuse and addiction?
Well, yeah, there's really basically two aspects to this. One is the predisposition, what some people already have, the
Uh-huh.
gene inside of them, where it may lay dormant, but it was passed on by a person in their, ancestry who had, alcohol or drug abuse issues. And sometimes it'll even skip a generation, where, one of the grandparent can have it, the child may not have it, but one of their children may get the gene as a result of it being passed on, because the parent maybe never drank or never had a real stressful situation that caused them to want to use that excessively, or to a point to self-medicate whatever issues that they have. So it passes on to another generation, and skip that one. I mean, even when I look at my own family, for instance, I look at my brothers and sisters, and none of them had issues with substance abuse, but yet my aunt, I had two aunts on my mother's side that died from substance use. One of them overdosed back in the late 70s of heroin, and my mother's second oldest sister, she died of alcoholism related issues. And her brother, the only brother she had, also passed away as a result of alcoholism. But it skipped over my brothers and sisters, and it came to me. My father is a different father than what they had. She was married. My mother was married twice. So when she married my father, he eventually became an alcoholic. So, the gene hit me, but none of my brothers and sisters. So, it's a twofold thing. So in terms of the environment, if you're already predisposed to it, then the environment can encourage it, or exaggerate or aspirate it or activate it. And so, it plays a major role, especially for people who are already predisposed. Now, there are also people who, over a period of time, because they like it, because they begin to see that it helps them get through some of the issues or challenges they may have in life, they continue to use, and eventually it becomes addictive. But there's a theory called the biothesis. It's called the biothesis stress model. Okay. And what it is basically says is that if a person is predisposed to a certain disease, that if they become stressed out because of some issue in life, or they have some traumatic experience, it will activate, even though they may have never had a drink or may have never had any kind of drug or used it. For some reason, it'll activate that desire to self-medicate, and once it's in their system, it activates it to addiction, and they become obsessive and compulsive. Wow. Family history has a lot to do with it too, as well. So yeah.
Wow. So let's stay on that topic of addiction. Okay. Is there a clear-cut definition of addiction? So I know when we think of alcoholics or people addicted to alcohol, we may think, they're drinking several drinks every day, they can't get away from it. Is it that overt when it comes to addiction, or there are little subtle things that can give you hints that people are addicted to substances?
Well, actually, to be honest with you, a lot of people think it's the amount only of how much a person uses that determines addiction. That's not necessarily true. Okay. Addiction is based on frequency, quantity, behavior, and history. And if you look at those four things in relationship to addiction, you can see that a person, there are some people, and I'm sure you have seen them in your life as well as some of the other people in your audience, and that is that they can have one or two drinks and then they start acting crazy. Yeah. My old uncle, he take two drinks and he's gone. Well, that's an alcoholic based on their behavior. I mean, anytime you have negative behavior, negative consequences as a result of anything that you do, and you continue to do it in spite of that, you're addicted, you see. So it's not always, because I know some people, they can drink a lot and they seem like their behavior doesn't change. So a lot of it has to do with the way in which you behave, the way in which you can keep stability in your life. Uh, so that has a lot to do with it. And then history, as we just talked about a few minutes ago. So, in determining whether a person is an alcoholic or a drug addict, they really have to, you have to look at a lot of different aspects,
Okay.
rather than just how much a person uses, but what are the consequences. Like, for instance, where I work in a psychiatric hospital, and we have a lot of people that come through there, especially young people that have marijuana issues. Okay. And it's not the fact that they just smoke marijuana, it's what happens to them when they smoke it.
Yeah.
They start having psychotic issues, hearing voices, seeing things that's not there, extreme paranoia. And it's not always when they're smoking, it's when they're coming down off of it, the withdrawal symptoms. Because marijuana is more of a psychological drug, where alcohol is more of a physical. It causes physical issues like liver and kidney and other kinds of diseases such as that. So, crack, marijuana, those are more psychological drugs. People become depressed, anxious, or they have psychotic issues as a result of emotional and psychotic issues. So, when you look at what is a person, how is a person addicted, if that person is addicted, you have to look at what it does to them when they use it. Yeah. And that's the main issue right there.
Wow. Do you see trends going up in addiction and substance abuse in all demographics?
Well, yeah, there are three basic drugs that I see that really has been on the increase in terms of the number of people that I have been in contact with, or have been trying to help or have some association with, and that is marijuana, which is not just pure marijuana. It's usually laced with something, and that's what causes a lot of the issues. The other thing is crystal meth, amphetamines. That is really on the rise. And it's interesting because it's on the rise among African Americans, which at one time it was more of a drug that was associated with the majority race in this country, which is, of course, the Caucasian race. So, and then the other one, of course, is the opioid issue. People use a lot of Percocets and Vicodins and Roxys and heroin, and all of those things are on the increase. And a lot of it has to do with, and I'm not trying to be political because I want to stay on topic, but a lot of it has to do with the increase of changes that have been made in the world in those countries that grow poppy seed. Afghanistan is an example of it. So as that type of thing happens, the more it comes into the United States, and then when it comes into the United States, of course, there's an increase in usage and availability.
So what are some of the, so you mentioned the rise of substance abuse has gone up, especially in marijuana, crystal meth, and opioids. So what are some of the healthy ways that people can, get help if they need help? I assume reach out to people like you. Is there a way to reach out to people in their inner circle, or is it some way that people in their inner circle can probe and dig deep into them, learning more about them, asking questions to really understand, do they have an addiction, or what's going on with them?
Well, there are a number of resources in the community for people who, there's a lot more for people that have some form of insurance, like, for instance, Medicaid or some other private insurance. But there are also programs available for people who are low income or have no insurance or no abilities to pay for services. And one of the programs that I really admire, even though it's a difficult program at times for certain types of people because of the nature and the way in which the program is structured, but it's one that if you go into that program, you can be successful if your focus is strictly on staying sober and clean and working the recovery program, and that is Sober Living America.
Sober
I think
living.
it's a great, yeah, I think it's a great program
You
because
have a
it
website?
allows, huh?
You have a website for it?
Just if people can
Google.
go on Google and put sober living America, it'll pop up.
Okay.
But what they do is allow people to come in and they find them a job. They already have connections with certain agencies and labor services, and they give people a job and they can stay there. They take a little bit of money out of their check every week, every other week to pay for them being there until they build up enough money and pay off whatever debt. But the point of it is that if you don't have anything and you're on the streets, for instance, and you want to get clean and sober, all you got to do is contact Sober Living America. You can have most people who are on the street have some kind of ties with some agencies in the community. If it's nothing more than the task force for the homeless or Crossroads or someplace like that. And they can get a case manager there or a social worker there to contact Sober Living America and say, hey, I'm interested in changing my life and I want to get on the right track. That's just one program. Then you got Gateway, downtown Atlanta. That's another program that people can look at. And then, of course, if you have a place to live or and you're trying to just get it together and you really can't afford a program or don't have time, maybe you're working. There's always AA and NA and CA that you can go and find those meetings to go to. But it's important that you get help. It's important that you get out of whatever environment that you may be in that continues to promote, your usage of drugs and alcohol. You got to get out of that environment.
Yeah. How would you say you motivate someone to get help? So if a person, you clearly see they're addicted to substance or they abuse substances, and you're constantly saying, maybe you should go talk to this person, maybe you should talk to that person, but they can't seem to get the big picture that you're trying to help them, that later on down the road, they're going to regret what they're doing now.
Right.
How do you motivate someone to get help, to make that first step, to go get help? Or does it have to just come from the person that's abusing the substances? Do they have to somehow figure it out and say, I need help, and before they make that first step?
Yeah, absolutely. They have to decide that they want to do something about it. No, you can talk to them till you're blue in the face and it's not going to do any good. All you can do is plant a seed. I consider myself to be a farmer. I plant seeds. And sometimes I'm even able to be there to water it and cultivate it and, whatever it needs to be done to get it to grow. And I might even be there at the time that it harvests, but that's usually not the case. Most of the time, the only thing we do is plant the seed, and we might be able to get the initial fertilizer and whatever in it. And after that, it's over with.
Yeah.
The harvest usually comes like later, and you're not usually even there to see it. But unless it's a personal relationship that you have with somebody, and that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there are basically 5 stages of what is known as the 5 stages of change.
Okay.
The first one is called pre-contemplation. That's where an individual, no matter what you say to that person, is not going to change their behavior. They're going to say, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say. You can't tell me what to do. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and so forth and so on. So that's the pre-contemplation stage. The next stage in the 5 stages of change is known as contemplation. In contemplation, that's where a person begins to think that maybe and start making association between what they're doing and what the results of what they're doing are bringing, the consequences of their behavior. They starting to say, well, maybe this is causing me a problem. Maybe this is causing my relationship to be messed up. Maybe it is taking all my money. Maybe it is the reason I'm homeless is because I'm spending all my money on drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So it has to, in that stage, that's where a person says, okay, well, maybe there is something wrong. Now, when they're in that stage, you might be able to motivate them to work on developing some program of recovery, because what you can do is you can take something in their life, and this is what motivational interviewing is, a theory or a therapy that's used, and when you're counseling, and that is you take something that the person sees a value, that they really care about, that's positive in their life, and you use that as a motivation to say, when you would like to see this better in your life, or when you like to obtain this in your life, or when you want to have a better relationship with your daughter or your son, if, say, for instance, if they have children. So you can use that as a motivation, but they have to be at least in the contemplation stage, where they're thinking about change, where they want to change, where they begin to see the association, rather, between what's going on in their life and the consequences that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But until that time, you're not going to be able to get through.
Gotcha. And then one more question about social. So a lot of people would consider going out on the weekend, having 1 or 2 drinks, maybe social marijuana. They consider that just social drinking or having social marijuana, social smoking. What role does that play in a lead to addiction? Could that possibly lead to addiction, or do you believe that it's fine for people to have social drinks as long as they can control, the action after having the drinks?
Well, I think, first of all, like I said before, it goes back to behavior. If a person drinks and then drives, knowing that they're intoxicated, then they probably have a problem. If they do, especially if they do it on a consistent basis, because the law says you're not supposed to drink and drive. You know what the results and the consequences have been, even if not for you, for others, where the people have gotten killed or hurt, or the individual who was driving got killed and maimed or hurt as a result of being drunk. So if you do this, knowing this, then obviously you're saying you don't care about the consequences. So if you don't care about the consequences, or you're not motivated to do differently based on those consequences, that tells me that you got a problem. So if you do that on the weekend, every weekend you go out after work and you party and you drink and you turn up, as they say. You have a good time, and ain't nothing wrong with turning up. I don't have a problem with that, if you are responsible with your turn up. Because if you ain't responsible with your turn up, you sure will be turned down. So that's the whole thing. When you look at that, that's when I see a problem. If you smoking marijuana and you got to go to work and the next day, and you high, and you going into work and you're working with machinery, or you working in a situation that can be dangerous, and that marijuana affects your coordination and affects your ability to make quick decisions, you got a problem. You see what I'm saying? So that's not social. Social is being able to go out and have a few drinks and say, okay, I'm not going to drive. I will take a Lyft or Uber, or I'll call a friend, or I'll get a friend that's sober to drive. That's being responsible. When you can think of things that way, then, and that's not to say that can't lead to addiction too, but the likelihood of you having a lot of negative consequences as a result of it, which is a lot based on, as far as I see, on addiction, then probably you're pretty safe. There are the health issues that are involved, especially with certain drugs, and alcohol is one of them. Even though it's legal, it's the most dangerous and lethal drug, one of the most dangerous and lethal drugs out there, particularly when it comes to the physical, because it affects every tissue in your body. When you put alcohol in your system, it affects every tissue in your body. It affects your coordination. It affects your ability to make quick decisions. And so and then when it comes to the physical part, the more you drink, your liver is the purifier. It's the one that takes in the stuff and purifies it and pushes it through your bladder on into, out. So when you drink excessively, the liver cannot process or purify fast enough. So what happens is the alcohol goes right back into your system because the liver can't purify it. so it goes back into your bloodstream. So that's why people are still intoxicated 4 hours after they had their last drink. Because if they drink excessively, the liver has not had time to process it or purify it or to get it out of your system.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's why eventually when people abuse alcohol in particular, later on in life, they usually end up with cirrhosis of the liver or something of that nature. It hardens up.
Yeah. Wow. So we're winding down. You got a lot of knowledge that you can definitely share with people, that you can share with people that reach out to you who may need help, or people that just want to learn more about the topic. So let people know where they can find you. So if you have a website, if you're on social media, if you want to leave your number, let people know where they can find you if they need help for themselves, or if they just want to learn more about the topic so that they can look out for different triggers within their family, within their inner circle of friends as well.
Sure. My private business is known as Substance Abuse Counseling and Assessment, and I do have a website. You can go to www.Substance Abuse Counseling and Assessments LLC, and it will pop up on your internet.
Okay.
The other thing is my number is 404-772-6757. You can call me there. You can go on Psychology Today. I am a therapist on there. You can put my name in for a search, and it will pop up, and you will be able to contact me through Psychology Today. So there are many different ways that you can get in contact with.
Sounds good. So people, you've heard Lester Long talk. You've heard the knowledge that he has. People, if you need help, if you think you may have an addiction, if you think you may be abusing substances, or if you just want to learn more about the topic, if you want to help a family member or a friend, please don't be afraid to reach out to either Lester Long or any of the other resources that he laid out here on the podcast. So we're going to end this show for today. I would love to have you back on because I know you have a lot of knowledge that you can share that you may not have gotten the opportunity to share on this episode. So later on down the road, I would love to have you back on this podcast if possible.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I love to leave this word from Nipsey Hussle at the end of all my shows because I love listening to Nipsey Hussle. I love listening to hip hop music. And he told people the marathon always continues. It does not stop by any means. So whatever you're doing, do it to the next level. If you're working in a career, if you're starting a business, if you're trying to get healthy, if you're trying to raise your kids, whatever you're doing, do it to another level, elevate to another level. And this is definitely a way to take your health to another level by understanding what substance abuse is and either helping yourself or helping a family member or friend. So the marathon continues. It does not stop. I appreciate your time, Mr. Lester Long. Thank you again. And people, please reach out if you need help. All right. So until next time, peace.
Peace. All right. Thanks.